Hello, my name is Darralynn Hutson. I am the founder and CEO of the Stylists Suite. And maybe you don't know what the Stylist Suite is, but we are a website that's specifically dedicated to journalists and publicists. And we have our live today with an amazing, I call him amazing because it's hard to be a publicist in the music industry these days. And his name is Cheyenne Beam. I met him through the work that he has been doing or he was doing before in the music industry. I kind of saw him everywhere on his social media, and I saw him with a lot of musicians. And I wanted to bring him on because he was a part of Brown Styles group of amazing, amazing publicists. And I met him through, just kind of seeing his work for many years. I'm excited to interview him, for him to tell me how he matriculates as a publicist in this industry. Please welcome Mr. Cheyenne Beam. You have a lot of labels. You wear a lot of hats. What do you call yourself?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I really appreciate the warm introduction. I think it's very special what you guys have created here, a platform that highlights publicists, journalists, especially in today's landscape. I feel like, a lot of publicists couldn't relate on not getting their due credit a lot of times, but there's not a lot of platforms that highlight publicists and the work that we do. So this is really special, and I'm happy to be here. I now, I think traditionally the work that I've done has been just an entertainment publicist. I think of myself more as like a strategist, dot connector, tastemaker, all those things.
I'm going to go back to old school. Let's go back to the old school definition of what an entertainment publicist is. You started working at a label or a PR agency first. What was your first experience?
So my first experience was an agency here in New York called the Chamber Group.
Infamous.
Yes. It's founded by veteran publicist Chris Chambers, who literally has worked with everyone from Erykah Badu to Mariah Carey to Usher and, so many stars, Solange, Drake, literally all the big stars, they have come through the Chamber Group. So that's where I started. I actually started there as an intern, and I was there for about 4 years.
Was it like a Devil Wears Prada situation, or was it?
Exactly.
Did you get thrown in? What was your like as an intern at the Chamber Group?
So for me, it definitely, the Devil Wears Prada definitely resonated while I was there. And I think, especially coming from Memphis, I'm originally from Memphis. And so I moved to New York about 13 years ago. And the Chamber Group was my first internship. And it was supposed to be a 3-month internship program that I ended up staying at for 6 months. And after about 6 months, I realized, I'm like, okay, this is what I want to do. Like I knew I wanted to do PR. I didn't know exactly whether I wanted to do fashion PR or entertainment PR, but I knew I wanted to be in the space. And I remember after my 6 months of being at the Chamber Group, I finally had requested a one-on-one with Chris. And he may not even remember this, but I remember talking to him, letting him know, I was going to be leaving the internship and I learned so much, but I think I wanted to do fashion PR. And he told me, he was like, you think you're going to like fashion, but I guarantee you'll be back in entertainment. And Chris and I share the same birthday, so a lot of similarities. We're both Aries, April 14th. And I was like, I have to see for myself, whether I liked it or not. And I also remember at the time, you weren't getting paid for internships. I mean, now it's like illegal to
you was getting paid in experience.
We were getting paid in experience, exactly. So I was a sponge soaking up everything while I was there. And I was also working. And I would have to be at that office from like 9 to 5, sometimes 9 to 7. If there were events afterwards, I would get home midnight, 1 o'clock. And so I remember having that conversation with him about coming back to entertainment. And, I was like, I need to see for myself. And so I ended up leaving, and he actually offered me a position as an assistant. His assistant was leaving, but it was more like his executive assistant. And I was so determined to be a PR assistant that I didn't take the job. And I remember my mom was looking like, are you crazy? You're not working. You're in New York. Like, you don't have no savings, no kind of like real income in, and you decline a job. And so she didn't understand why, but I just didn't want to be stuck as someone's assistant, an executive assistant. I wanted to do actual PR work. But so I ended up going to intern at a couple fashion companies and fashion PR agencies. And then I ended back up in entertainment, just like Chris said. And Chris hired me for my first job. So I started out there as a PR assistant.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, what was the benefits of being an intern for all of these kids that just want to jump right into the industry? Why intern? What has it done for your life, for your career?
Oh my God, it changed the trajectory of my career altogether. It was such a valuable experience. To keep it just 100 with everyone, like I had already graduated from college. And so I came from Memphis, and there wasn't much exposure to big fashion companies or, big entertainment companies. I had no idea what I was like getting myself into, honestly. I realized it once I got to New York and I started actually interviewing. There was a moment that sticks out to me. It was a real aha moment for me. Was one of my interviews was a group interview, and I had done internships in Memphis, mostly like nonprofit things, like Make-A-Wish Foundation, things like that. And so I remember everyone kind of going around in this circle talking about their experience. And these are kids who started interning at 15 in New York City, and so they would be like, "Oh, I interned at Def Jam and Republic Records, and I was at Gucci, and I was at Tom Ford, and I interviewed for Kate Spade," all these big brands. And then when it came around to my turn, I was confident and very proud of the work that I had done, but I realized a stark difference was that these people had jobs, in my opinion, that felt sexier. And so I remember big names, they feel this is a sexy, they have this, really zhuzhed up resume. And I had a conversation with my mom again. We had
mama. Okay, mom. You listen to your mama. Okay.
Yes, you better. But in the beginning, we definitely had a lot of tough conversations. And I was just like, I think I have to go intern again. She's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I think, in order for me to be competitive and, land a job, because I had been applying and I wasn't getting anything. And so I interned. And I went back after college and I did like 3 or 4 quick internships. Besides the chamber group was 6 months. But throughout that year of me, the other 6 months, I did like 3 more internships. And so I feel like without that experience, that knowledge, being really in it.
Knee deep.
Yeah, knee deep in it. Getting that real hands-on experience and learning from so many great mentors and people that I met who just kind of helped guide me through that internship process and landed my first job. It's invaluable.
I don't want to keep talking about the past, but it's so important because it's going to lead me into the question that's going to propel me to what you're doing now. But let's talk about the relationships. Now, obviously, you're working in an industry. There's a lot going on. There's PR for me, I didn't even know. I started as a journalist, as a writer. I didn't even use the word journalist. I just knew I wanted to be a writer. And a lot of people that go into PR, they have no idea what PR is, or, they just, like you said, it sounds sexy. What did you think that PR was versus what PR is now? What
so I had an idea of what PR was going into it because I studied it in college. That was my major. And so I knew, to an extent what it was. I don't think I knew exactly what it was. I feel like when you're in college and you take PR classes, it's more for corporate PR, communications, crisis management, those types of things. Whereas, working in entertainment PR, it's a lot of like you said, relationship building, a lot of strategy, a lot of like creative strategy that goes into it. You kind of, especially at an agency where I started, we had our hands in kind of everything: marketing, digital marketing, connecting our clients with brands, with creators that made sense, making sure the right tastemakers and partners and people that we wanted to connect our clients with were in the building and aware of what was happening. And so I think throughout my internships and just like what I studied in school and learned in school, I had at least a basic idea of what PR was.
Versus now being an entrepreneur in this space, what's different?
So I think also, PR is different in general. So even what I learned, what I knew it to be, it has evolved so much and changed so much that you have to constantly keep learning. And I'm still like a sponge, and I'm always researching or reading or, just figuring out different ways to expand my skill set, because a lot of, like, as we know, publications are shrinking and companies are shrinking and media is dying and media is being attacked. And so it's coming up with, just more creative ways to actually execute these campaigns. I think as an entrepreneur, it's about, like you said, the relationships, the hustle, going out, chasing clients, doing those proposals, reaching back out to my network, whether I worked with them, at an agency or at the labels, just tapping in, seeing, do you have the bandwidth to handle your current roster? Is there a way that I can get involved as far as like consulting or freelancing? So that's
a great tip.
Really,
I love that. That's a really great tip.
Yeah, relationships are important.
What skills did you use kind of running? Because I know when I was a journalist, I had to write, I had to edit, I had to learn how to shoot. Eventually, I had to learn how to do social media. And that, to me, gave me the impetus to say, I can be a business owner. I can own a business because I had all of these skills that I was able to tap into. When you were doing PR for a company, what skills did you take immediately into entrepreneurship that you kind of use on a regular basis? Other than the obvious,
I kind of think it was the opposite, actually. Like, I feel like I have always had an entrepreneurial mindset. And so even when I was at a company, I kind of approached my work in that way. Just a self-starter, hitting the ground running, doing what I need to do to just like execute and make things happen. That's just always been my nature as a person. And so I guess it would be more technical things that I learned. It's just like organization. Of course, a lot of the relationships that I have came from me working at some of these, the bigger labels or the agencies.
Let me stop you right there. Let me stop.
Okay.
When you're talking about building a relationship, when you work at a label, when you work at something very as infamous as a chamber group, obviously you have, the talent and the clients and all of that. But when you go into entrepreneurship, how are you still able to keep those relationships strong with lesser known, talent, with lesser known clients? How do you continue to keep those relationships intact?
So just going back, I worked at, like I said, the Chamber Group. So
and Island Records, right?
And I worked at Island Records and Interscope Records. So I was
Interscope too.
Yes, I was at all of these companies, and I did some amazing work. I worked with some amazing talent and amazing executives. Everyone from iconic artists like Toni Braxton, Shaka Khan, Sean Paul. Yes.
I just saw
the legendary Shaka Khan.
I just see her tiny table. She just
her tiny? I didn't see
it.
No, I haven't seen it. I need to check it out.
I cried. She just did it last week. So
I feel like I'm behind on a few. There were a few that I recently saw go up that I haven't seen yet, but I have to definitely check that out. Yes. But yeah, like the, iconic artists like that. And then also like more developing artists, like working with Jessie Reyez from like her mixtape days to the release of her debut album. I worked with very closely with the Marley family. I was Skip Marley's publicist. A lot of like new developing artists. And so throughout the years of me being at these agencies or at the labels, working with artists, working with talented executives, I've always put my relationships first and prioritize just like fostering those relationships. And also not just having relationships that were transactional,
yes,
and that were just professional relationships, but actually getting to know these people on a personal human level. And so we check in every now and then, or if an opportunity comes up and I think that, you know, it aligns with what the type of work you're doing, we share things and we're, you know, in constant communication with each other. We're going to grab coffee, going to lunch, going to dinner, going to happy hour, you know, just like really breaking bread with each other and, you know, like I said, fostering those relationships. And so when it came time for me to, you know, step out on my own and launch Beam Media Consulting, the company in which I consult under, I tapped back into that network. And honestly, me launching Beam Media Consulting, it wasn't something that I like, oh, I dreamt about launching my own media consulting company. I've done other things throughout the years, you know, in the entrepreneurial space. I had a Beam Eyewear, which was my sunglass
That's
company.
right. And the tie line.
Yes.
Okay.
I had a tie line way before I even moved to New York. I was still in college and I took a gap year in college, and my manufacturer for my bow ties was based in New York. And so I would fly back and forth from Memphis to New York to design these ties. And, you know, so that's when I fell in love with New York and I knew I wanted to move here. So I've always kind of been an entrepreneur in a way. But launching a media company was never a part of what I wanted to do. It kind of came out of a need to just like make money. And I love the work that I do. I always tell people, even though I don't work a typical 9 to 5, if I have to work a 9 to 5, which we do to take care of ourselves,
yes, we can.
Yes, we can. And so, you know, this is the only job that I could see myself doing. Like, I'm very passionate about it. It just aligns so perfectly with my interests, my personality. Other than that, I would be an entrepreneur doing other things. And, you know, those are things I'm still working on, but there were massive layoffs in 2024. Labels were, you know, cutting their departments by more than half. Like sometimes 3/4 of the department would, you know, be let go. And so at Interscope, that happened to me. I was laid off, and I took about 6 months to just kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And then I was like, you know what? I do want to keep doing this. I want to, you know, so I tapped back into my network and I just started, you know, consulting and freelancing. And then I was back to mom. I was having a conversation with my mom, and she was like, you know, you should make it official. And so I was like, you know what? Yeah. And so I, you know, formed Beam Media Consulting, and I've been working under that the past year. So, yeah.
No, I love that. I love a couple of things that you said. I too went into entrepreneurship out of a necessity. It wasn't that I would have loved to get a job at Essence or at Vogue.
Yeah.
But those opportunities just didn't come to me. So me freelancing was out of necessity, out of editors saying, hey, I need you to write something, you know, I need you to do something. And
exactly.
I wonder, was it kind of the same for you as you started to say, okay, I'm starting this business? How did you start letting people know that you were starting the business, number one, but how did you start to bring in clients? Were they former relationships that you had, or how do you present yourself now to get clients?
So honestly,
I know it's a lot.
In the beginning and the first, well, no, because like in 2024, in January or February of 2024, I was laid off, and I had been working clients and able to sustain myself and, you know, doing pretty well. And I just kind of took what kind of fell in my lap just from word of mouth, honestly, and that was a blessing. Mm-hmm, and only just this year had I become more proactive about putting myself. I just like publicly spoke about Beam Media Consulting in like, I think February of this year. I had already had clients from just like word of mouth. Just a few examples is I was at an agency for a brief moment, and a couple of the clients I knew from that agency, they decided to eventually continue working with me.
Yes, yes.
I worked with this woman, Nicole Planton. I don't know if you know Nicole, but I worked with her while I was at Interscope. We launched Kenya Barris's joint venture deal with Interscope. He had a record label called Collabo. And so I worked very closely with her in launching that. And this really, really talented artist, Gogo Morrow, out of Philadelphia. She was their their primary artist or their focus artist that they were building. So we worked very closely on that project. And she's, brought a couple of clients my way. And people that I worked with at Interscope were like, Cheyenne would be great for this. So just from all of my different companies that I've worked for or relationships that I've built while I've been at those companies, or even outside of those companies, people have just like sent things my way that, they assumed or thought would align with me. And, most of the time they're spot on. And, I take the projects that I'm excited about. And, sometimes if I feel like there's not alignment, then I'll try to find someone else who I feel like the project will resonate more with and send, so it's just sharing information and sharing clients.
That's a blessed place to be in business, right? You have a unique way of keeping relationships. Can you share any of those tips on what you do, whether it's an editor or whether it's a brand, and you say, oh, I worked with you 10 years ago. What do you say? What do you do? How do you stay connected?
I think I have so many different approaches and ways that I, stay in contact with people. I kind of touched on it earlier, just about getting to know people on a human level.
So you're vulnerable. You're okay with sharing yourself.
Yes. Oh yeah, definitely. And I think that's what people resonate with the most is relatability and vulnerability, especially now. We're in the days of the internet. Everything's online. People like access, and people can tell when you're not being authentic. And I pride myself on always showing up as my authentic self, no matter what room I've been in. Like this version of Cheyenne, I mean, I've, of course, over the years evolved and I've grown and I've done the self-work and shadow work and all the things that you need to do to just evolve as a person. But I've always been the same, and I always show up as myself, no matter the situation, whether I'm talking to the CEO of a company or the cook at, in the cafeteria at a company. I'm literally always the same. And so I pride myself on that. I'm a Southern boy at heart, so there's that.
Get it from his mama, right?
I was gonna say the way I was raised, my mom, my grandmother, and all the values they instilled in me, and so I bring that in my everyday walk through life, and so just like you said, connecting with people on that level. I'm also kind of tapped into a lot of different spaces, culture, lifestyle, fashion, music. And so I've been lucky and blessed enough I'm invited to a lot of, different events. Just like Thursday, I was out, and I go out far less than I used to, as far as just like business events or, industry events, I guess. But Thursday I was like, let me get out a bit, and I, kind of popped around. So also seeing people in those spaces and, just having conversation with them, letting them know, yes, showing up. Showing up is, if you can just show up, you've done most of the job.
They would love, they love you.
Yes, just show up. No, that's a key takeaway, seriously. And even if you don't feel like it, it's just like,
those are the times I find I have the best fun when I don't feel like going. I don't know why it is that way. But one last question before I have you give your information on where people can reach you, because I too, when I was starting out as a writer, it was a lot that I had to teach my family, my mom and my dad specifically. They didn't know any famous writers. They didn't know how I was going to make a living. So a lot of what I learned in this industry, I was also teaching my family. And I would love for you to give some advice to the young people that want to get into this industry, but their families have no idea how they're going to survive. They have no idea that these opportunities are even possible. what advice would you give to those young people that's trying to say, Mom, I know I could do this, right?
Do it. I think, I just do it. I think validation from family is important, and we love that. And, thankfully, I think my family, they knew me, and, I'm a pretty smart, like they knew I wasn't out here just making stupid decisions, and that I've kind of always been, on a straight path. And I haven't done any, had any real crazy mishaps or anything like that, or got into any big trouble. And so they knew that I always was pretty much goal oriented, and that I wouldn't make poor decisions. You would have, of course, hiccups. And so I think they kind of let me do it, even though, and they were supportive of it, even though they didn't fully understand it. And
Yes.
I've been now doing this 13 years, and I still don't think my mom or my, grandmother, they fully know exactly what I do in my day to day. They're just like, my mom was like, what? She was watching TV the other day or recently, and she's like, you were on the Breakfast Club? And I'm like, she's like, I didn't know you were. I was like, yeah, I had my clients. I was working with this Netflix client for this amazing documentary, Songs from the Hole. And I booked them on, you should definitely check it out. And they just won an Emmy. So it's an Emmy award-winning documentary. But yeah, I worked very closely with them for the launch and the rollout, this campaign. And so I booked them for the Breakfast Club, and you could just see me kind of in the back. Thank you. Yeah, you could just see me hanging out in the back. My mom was like, I was just randomly watching this and I saw you. So I don't think she really understands. She's just like, oh, you would like you're with Tony Braxton, or you're with, this artist, or so I think my advice would be to just do it. And
just do it. Because you learn so much by just not completely understanding what it is that you do, right?
Yes. And once they see, the benefits of it, this and your success, even if they don't fully get it, they'll start to understand, like, oh wow, you can actually, like, you made a career out of this.
That's
and
right.
So I think
right.
My mom also, like, coming to, my office at Island, and I had a corner office, and I'm young in my 20s, and she's like, wow, okay, this is like a real big boy job, and she was proud. Or even just like when she comes to New York and we're out and like people are walking up to her and just like, like telling her like, oh my God, we love your son and he's amazing, just singing my praises. I think those are the moments where I think she kind of connects with it more. But I've never kind of been hesitant about, it's like I said, it's a passion of mine. Like I'm very, it perfectly aligns with my interests. And so I never worried about people not fully understanding it. I'm like, they'll get it eventually. So I think you just have to keep your head down, do the work, and people will come around.
Absolutely. And you are a perfect example of what how far someone in PR can get. I think you're a great example to show, because there aren't a lot, obviously. And the fact that you have been able to now consult other people. You mentioned something about strategy. You cannot create a plan of action unless you've actually worked that plan of action so many times, right?
So true.
Right.
Yes. Yes. Oh, very true.
Everybody can't be a strategist because everybody has not, taken a plan.
Been in it. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Where can people
execution? I always say that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
My last question is where people can find you. You mentioned Songs from the Hole. What other projects are you promoting right now? And the last one is where can folks find you?
So right now I'm in a place where I've been taking meetings, sending proposals, very much so open for business and collaboration if it aligns. My Instagram everywhere is Cheyenne Beam. I have my portfolio linked on socials, my LinkedIn, and my emails connected to my Instagram or my LinkedIn and my socials. And I think that's probably the best place to get in touch.
Okay. Where are you most active on social, LinkedIn or Instagram?
Both, especially
Oh,
these
both?
days. I think yes, both. I've been very involved. Like I'm on both every day. Just trying to be more intentional about the way I use LinkedIn. Only because like I said, I've been more proactive about chasing clients and building my roster, but also simultaneously looking for in-house roles that align with where I am creatively and professionally. And
Hmm.
so I've been on both quite a bit.
So you just answered a question for me. A platform like the Stylist Suite, it would be best helpful for you to see opportunities that exist inside of other PR agencies. That would be helpful for you, kind of job opportunities or more identifying media outlets looking for stories, which would better help you.
So I think a mix of both.
Okay.
Because so if there are PR agencies or brands or in-house roles that align, I've been applying for those types of jobs. But I've
Okay.
also been, in the meantime, I'm reaching out to clients and, like I said, tapping into my network to see if there are any projects that align as I'm working on building a roster for Beam Media Consulting. So that's one side of it, but also the stories and continuing to foster those relationships with writers and journalists, because I am still pitching and having those conversations with for my clients, and so a mix of
Absolutely.
both. Yeah.
I will be in New York. I do New York Fashion Week every year, and I'm bringing two of my mentees with me.
So we definitely
So
have
we're
to
gonna
like.
do, and we hang with Trust and May. Trust and May brings us down, so we do
Oh,
all the behind
nice.
the scenes stuff. So, I mean, it's a 4-year relationship. So I'm bringing my two mentees with me. I will see you in September.
Let's
Do you do
definitely
the
connect in
shows
September. I used to do them a lot more,
with your
and the
clients,
parties,
right?
the after parties, and um, sometimes I'll do them, and sometimes I'll just send the client. But especially if I have like a friend who works for the brand or the PR company who
Yes.
represents them, and I'm going to support. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm here and there. Yeah,
Okay.
but
Well,
I
I will
would
definitely
love to
reach
connect
out
when
to.
you're here.
Yes.
Yes, please let me know.
Absolutely. It was such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for your time.
Likewise.
I appreciate your energy,
Thank
and
you
we'll
guys for having
Darralynn will
me.